A healthy relationship with food is so important not just for a well-balanced life that you can enjoy, but often for most people it's also to be able to get the results they want, because without this good relationship with food, quite frequently it turns into this all or nothing approach and we end up yo-yo dieting and having this binge restrict cycle that keeps people stuck forever. But even if you don't take results into consideration, just having a healthy relationship with food is going to make your life so much better. You will be so much more happy not feeling like you're always controlled by food. Now, a lot of people will just say, look at food as fuel. It just fuels your body. And you know what? They're not wrong. It is fuel, but it's also a lot of other things. It's also cake at your child's birthday party. It's also going out for drinks and a dinner for anniversary. Food is a huge part of all kinds of get-togethers, celebrations, holidays, and it's meant to be enjoyed. Anyway, the things I'm going to cover in this video are things that I've found helpful not only for my own personal journey, because I come from a background of not having a great relationship with food, and I've found it to be helpful for other people as well, but I want to be very clear. I am not a therapist. I don't specialize in eating disorders. These are just my experiences. And if you're someone who struggles with emotional eating, with eating disorder type of behavior, please seek out a qualified therapist or someone who specializes in these things. And if you are working with someone, their advice always trumps anything I have to say in this video. Now, with that out of the way, one thing you need to understand right up front is this is something that's going to take time. You're not going to just switch overnight and everything is just going to be different. No, you're going to make improvements, you're going to make mistakes, you're going to slip into old patterns, you're going to fight the thought processes, and it's going to take going through this for a long period of time, and that's okay. Just understand everyone's different here. We can't just give one advice to everybody. For some people, it's going to be a big win to be able to include something like pizza or a burger and fit it into their diet and not feel guilty, not beat themselves up. For another person, it might be a big win to not eat the burger or pizza, because plenty of people feel like they have to eat things, and if they don't, something's wrong. So everyone's different. But without a doubt, at least in my opinion, the biggest thing when it comes to building a healthy relationship with food is not looking at foods as either good or bad. I truly believe there's no such thing as bad foods. It's all about the context of your overall diet, but there's nothing inherently bad about anything. Food is just calories. Calories are good. The body needs them. Like I said, it's contextual. For instance, if you take someone who have not ate in over 2 weeks and they're literally starving, let's just say the only thing that's available for them is a donut. Is eating that donut gonna be bad for them? Should they say no to it? No, it would be good for them. It would be healthy for them, and it would be something that would be great for their body. Now, is that an extreme example? Of course, that's probably not you. But the point is, yeah, food is fuel, and not only things like fruits and vegetables. Now, if you have an intolerance to something, or especially if you have an allergy, then yeah, you probably want to avoid those foods. But other than that, food isn't bad. It really isn't. Take, for instance, sugar. Everyone points to sugar as being like the root of all evil. Science doesn't agree, and there's even a study that looked at this and had people eat these same macros. One did 4% of their calories from sugar, the other did 44% of their calories from sugar, and guess what? No differences, not only in weight loss, but all health markers improved across the board for both groups, almost the same. The other problem with looking at just eating clean is everyone has a different definition of what clean and dirty is. Like, some people will say fruit is good, some will say fruit is bad. Some will say dairy is good, others will say dairy is bad. There's no such thing as a clean definition. You can't even find it in scientific literature. Clean eating doesn't exist. But even if it did, even if we could put a label on certain foods and across the board say, okay, this is good, this is bad. Just by thinking that, what that does to you psychologically is not something we can ignore and is huge. The more you restrict something, the more you tell yourself, or even worse, are told by someone else that you can't have something, the more likely it is that you're gonna crave that. And some people will argue with this and make comments in some of these videos, and to them, I say, screw you. They'll say something like, well, if you feel that way, then you're just weak and have no willpower. You know what? I don't have time for that. We're humans, psychology matters. And let's just say, for instance, we had 3 different doors, and I was gonna tell you, all right, you can have whatever you want behind one of those doors, but for the love of God, whatever you do, do not open up door number 2. What's your response gonna be? You're gonna be like, what's behind door number 2? I gotta know what's behind there. It's like when there's a sign that says do not touch. What do you wanna do? You wanna touch it. This is human psychology. And this very much applies to food. You might not even really care about donuts that much. You might not even crave them that much. But if someone tells you you cannot have that donut, automatically you're probably gonna want that donut. So yeah, the psychology behind this stuff is crazy, but that's all well and good. How do we actually start reframing our mindset? To me, believe it or not, one of the best things you can do to create a healthy relationship with food is start tracking macros using a flexible dieting approach. Some people will argue with this, and a lot of therapists probably would too. And again, don't take what I have to say. If you're working with a therapist and they're telling you not to track, don't track. The reason I think it's beneficial is because you can learn how to include foods you enjoy into your diet, work it into your numbers, and you get to choose what you have and make a balance for yourself that will keep you satisfied. The thing is, if we look at a food by food comparison, you may look at something like an apple versus a donut, and on the surface, yeah, the apple's probably the better choice, right? It's nutrient dense, vitamins and minerals and things like that. They absolutely matter, and I'll touch on that in a minute. But if you choose that apple and then you feel more and more restricted and you get to the point where you feel like you're gonna break, now you decide, screw it, I'm having donuts. In fact, I'm gonna have all the donuts I can because I feel so restricted. And then you also feel like my diet's gonna start again tomorrow. I need to get as much of this in now as I possibly can because of this. So you end up just binging like crazy, end up feeling guilty, beating yourself up, and this can send you down an even bigger shame spiral, sometimes you never even come back from. Whereas if you chose the donut instead of the apple, but you just fit that donut into your numbers and moved on with the day, even if it didn't even actually fit in your numbers and you actually went a little bit over, but you just have that one and you feel satisfied and you're happy that you got to have a little something and you don't beat yourself up, you don't feel guilty, and you just move on, well, now choosing that donut is probably a healthier option than the more quote unquote healthy apple because it keeps you on plan and it's much more mentally healthy. So when you start doing this with tracking macros, you can start learning how to include foods you enjoy into your diet. You start learning a lot more about foods. Instead of just saying, eat this, don't eat that, you start seeing what's in the foods you eat. You start seeing what portion sizes look like. And you learn that, hey, I can have some of this stuff, I can still keep seeing progress, I'm not getting fat just because I had a little bit of ice cream. And then you can start to make this mental shift. Now, people will take this, and unfortunately, sometimes it will just be a different way of being restrictive and still having an unhealthy relationship with food, because what they'll do is say, I need to hit my macros exactly. If I'm not hitting right down to the gram every single day, if I'm off at all, then what's the point? I'm gonna screw everything up, and then, well, I'm already over my macros. I'm gonna just binge my face off now until tomorrow, and then I'll get back on track again. This is basically the same kind of a thing. So it's not to be used as like a crutch. It's a learning tool, and it's not about being exact. It's just a way to allow yourself to be a bit more flexible and choose what you decide to eat and not eat. And there is no right or wrong answer. It's your choice, and when it's your choice, you're much less likely to rebel against it. Another reason the macros is helpful is because a lot of times people feel like certain foods make them fat because what they do is they eliminate that certain food from their diet, and what happens? They lose weight. Why did they lose weight? Because they reduced calories by taking away that food. They went into a calorie deficit, lost weight. And then what happens? They go, I'm gonna reintroduce these into my diet because I really miss them. They eat them like crazy because they feel so restricted. Therefore, their calories go way up, and then they go, crap, I'm gaining weight because I reintroduced this food into my life. See, it makes me fat. No, it's just portion control. It's your calorie balance. So again, learning how to include them and account for them can help show you this. And one of the best ways you can start including some things you do enjoy is when you're tracking, just take whatever you want to have, whatever it might be. I don't care what it is. Say it's going to be a candy bar for the day. You want a Snickers, whatever it might be. Put that into your tracker right away. Before you even do anything for the day, put that candy bar into your tracker and then plan the rest of your day around that food so you know you're gonna have it. And then when you're gonna eat that food, I want you to enjoy it and I want you to focus on it, but I also don't want you to just stand in the kitchen and just eat it. So say for instance, you wanted chips or something like that. The worst thing you can do is just open that bag in the kitchen and just start eating out of it because there's no portion control and it's just readily available. And once you start, especially if you don't have the best relationship with food yet, it can make it really hard to stop. Whereas if you portion out what you want, shut the bag, put it away in the cupboard, go to a completely different room, sit down, and just focus on enjoying that food for what it is, not watching TV and mindlessly snacking, really paying attention to what you're doing, this can really help. And the fact that you've put it away and you're in a completely different room makes it much less likely to go get more. I mean, could you go get more? Of course you could, but it's much less likely to do so when it's more of an inconvenience and you've already set yourself up for what you were gonna do. Now, you may not want to be tracking for the rest of your life. I'm not saying you have to, I'm not, but you have to build the knowledge base first. And before you start learning how to include like free meals. Like, I don't like the term cheat meals, and I want you to stop doing this. If you're using it now, the term cheat is deadly for a healthy relationship with food because it implies that you're doing something wrong. When are you ever cheating on something and that's a good thing? It's not. That's gonna make you feel guilty. That's why you feel guilty and feel bad when you have a cheat, because you feel like you're doing something wrong and you're not. There's times to have some food that you just want, whether it fits in your numbers or not, and you're just going to enjoy it, and that's fine. But it's not a cheat. You're just eating food. You're just living your life. And I have a lot of strategies we can take on how to do these things and still see results and not blow up. And I'm going to do a video about this soon, so I'm not going to go into big detail about this now. But just know it's going to take time. You don't go from 0 to 100, right? You've got to build that knowledge base, and it takes time to get there. Start implementing some free meals that you can have over time, learning to not go, okay, I'm not tracking, so therefore I'm just gonna go nuts until I track again tomorrow. No, just have something that you want, plan for it into your day, have it, and move on. And this can absolutely be done. My family goes out every weekend, sometimes multiple times per weekend, and I don't worry about tracking it. I just have what I want. I have some drinks with it. I have something fun, but I just move on, and I tend to eat a little bit less throughout the week, so I know there's extra there, and it's just not about being perfect. But again, these are things you have to learn over time. Now, a huge thing for creating a healthy relationship with food is you have to disassociate emotions from food. They cannot be intertwined. It's just a death trap. And this is beyond just feeling guilty about eating food. You should never feel guilty. You should never feel bad. You definitely don't want to beat yourself up. It's the worst thing you could ever possibly do. And if you do get off track sometime and make a mistake, which you will, you're going to. I promise you right now, you're gonna make mistakes. You're human. It's gonna happen. So be okay with that. Just learn from it and move on. But even beyond all that, don't justify food either, right? Don't think, well, I've been good, so I deserve this food. Like, what? No. Well, if you want that food, eat that food. If you want, that's fine. You get to make that choice. But you don't get it because you were good. It's not a reward. You're not a dog. So just work on separating emotions from food. Emotional eating is a big thing. It's a big problem for a lot of people. I do have some tips I can give you. Again, see a therapist if you really struggle with this stuff. But one thing that I have found to be helpful for so many people is if you find yourself in a moment where you're eating your feelings or you're eating your stress or you feel like you're gonna start doing one of these things, the reason you're doing this is because you're trying to cope or trying to make yourself feel better in the moment. I don't like the way I'm feeling, so therefore let me eat this food and I'll feel better for a moment. Of course, that typically ends up making you feel worse in the long run. In the moment, that's kind of a hard thing to realize. But one thing you can do is get out of your head. And when I say that, I mean literally get out of your head. Talk to yourself out loud. I know people hear this and go, okay, that's what a crazy person would do. No, I'm telling you, it's so powerful to say it out loud. Say, am I eating this because I'm hungry or because I'm stressed out or because I'm emotional or whatever it might be? Say it out loud. And when you do that, it becomes real and it can snap you out of it. I'm telling you, it's a game changer. In your head, if you're just listening to yourself, that tiny little voice in your head, that person is against you and is not logical. There's no ration behind what's going on inside that head. Anything in your head is emotional. When you say it out loud, it becomes logic. It becomes real. And then when you hear it out loud, you realize how crazy it was, but you don't know that if you don't say it out loud. So stop yourself, say it out loud, see what happens. Hopefully that will help. Another big tip, do not restrict anytime you have a binge. If you have a binge, you're probably gonna have them. That's okay. Just move on. Just learn to get back on track, because if you try to restrict every time you binge because you're afraid of gaining weight, typically that's just gonna make things worse. You wanna be able to just learn to keep moving forward, not beat yourself up, not try to make up for it, because it's through stopping the restricting that you learn to end the binging. You don't end the restricting by ending the binging. That's backwards. You're not gonna be able to do that. And that actually brings me up to an important point here, something that I'm sure you've probably struggled with. I know you're probably in a position where you wanna lose some weight. I'm making some assumptions, maybe you don't. And we can get caught up in, I don't care, I just wanna lose the weight, and then I can work on my relationship with food after. In fact, this is something I see on my applications for online coaching all the time. I've got, what are your short-term goals? What are your long-term goals? I would say probably about half, if not more, say short-term goal, lose weight, long-term goal, build a healthy relationship with food. These are completely backwards. You're probably not going to lose the weight unless you create the healthy relationship with food first. If you just try to lose weight even though your relationship with food is terrible, you're probably only gonna make your relationship with food even worse. You need to take the time to improve your relationship with food so that you can more effectively lose weight down the road. And I know that's probably not something you wanna hear, but it's so important and it's so helpful, not only for building that relationship with food, but also usually going through something like a reverse diet where you're gonna take the time to get your calories up, and And this is really going to help you with your relationship with food too, because part of the problem with trying to lose weight with a bad relationship with food is you're not going to lose weight without restricting calories. You have to by nature. There's different ways of doing this, and this is basically what all different diets with the name are. They're ways of reducing your calories. But the lower your calories are, the more restrictive it has to be by nature, especially if you don't want to be starving all the time. You want to eat some of these foods that are more nutrient dense, more filling foods, but that doesn't leave you much room to be able to include things you do enjoy while actually being able to see the results you want. Plus, the leaner you get, the longer you've been on a diet, the more foods just taste that much better. They do. Like, this is something that happens. Food tastes better when you've been dieting. So now you're craving more, food tastes better, you're more restricted. It makes it that much harder. How are you gonna work on building a healthy relationship with food and learning how to include foods when your calories are down and you're already struggling and your hunger hormones are all out of whack? It's gonna be really challenging. By reverse dieting first, gradually increasing your calories, not only are you gonna improve your metabolism, build some muscle, be able to perform better, and go through all these things that are gonna set you up to have a better cut down the road, but you're also now therefore giving yourself a bigger budget of food, and this will make it much easier to learn how to include some of these foods into your diet, create the better relationship with food you're after. Now you go into a position down the road to start your cut, better relationship with food, better metabolism, more muscle display that you do cut. Everything's gonna be so much better, but you have to have the patience to get there. You can't keep rushing the process. And I know that's not a popular message, but it's so important. You gotta slow down. You have your whole life ahead of you. Don't get caught up in this. Don't panic. Don't get desperate. I hear this all the time. I'm desperate, please help. Desperate people do desperate things, and desperate things are never sustainable, and they almost always make things worse before they make anything better. So stop, think big picture, work on this stuff emotionally first, and everything will come together and you will thank yourself down the road. And I promise you, your life will be so much better. Even if you have to go through a period of time weighing a bit more than you want to, being a little bit more uncomfortable, learning to go through this is gonna help you so much. And this is typically how you create a better body image as well, right? Everyone thinks a better body image comes by creating a better body. That's just not true, in my opinion. The body image comes from learning to love yourself no matter what shape you're in, and learning to go through that type of stuff, and then down the road cutting. Otherwise, you just lose the weight and then become petrified to gain even a pound down the road, and your body image isn't improved at all. So yes, I do believe that reverse dieting is a big part of helping create a healthy relationship with food. But I get it, you're probably scared to reverse diet. It's very normal, especially if you're not comfortable with where you're at right now. However, I have a video up here at the top that goes over being too afraid to start your reverse diet, and I'm hoping that watching that video will help you get over those fears so you can finally create the life you're after. I hope this video was helpful. If you do have any questions, please leave them in the comments below, and I will see you next time.